Hey everybody, it is Brian Nutter at Summit Racing here with one of my favorite racing personalities on the planet. Real quick introductions here, but Randy, do you want to introduce yourself to our
Sure.
fans?
Yeah, I got a three-line resume, actually more than three, but I'm Randy Pobst. I've been a road racer, pro road racer my entire life, at least after autocross. And I've won the Rolex 24 twice in GT class. I've won almost 100 pro races. I drove for Porsche, Audi, Mazda, and Volvo. I then developed the kind of the social media career, did Motor Trend track testing and articles for about 12 years. Best
Yes.
driver's car was a really good test that we did over there. And then I moved over to Haggerty YouTube channel with Jason Camisa. And
Yes.
I do the show Icons and Drag Race, and we're shooting one in week after next too. So I'm getting to do a lot of fun stuff. And it's great to be on the show with you here, Brian. I appreciate all your help with my car projects and my wonderful buddies that are working on them from Summit Racing.
We really appreciate it. So it's funny. I followed Randy for a really, really long time, and you can see I wore my golf jacket today in honor of this moment here with my twin older brother from another mother. So I first met Randy in person over at the Holly High Voltage event over at Sonoma Raceway here a couple years ago, 3 years ago maybe, and he was doing his instructor courses. So really, you operate at all levels, in terms of sometimes you're racing, sometimes you're testing for people, sometimes you're writing, sometimes you're doing your shows, and just a hired gun. Anytime somebody needs great numbers, but also like really solid numbers, like you're not kind of hit and miss. You've got good, steady numbers that they know from year to year to year, that they can watch your track times and know that it's really representative of what the car can do.
I'm blushing, Brian.
I have called you a national treasure at one point in your life, I think.
Yeah,
But
but thank you.
at any rate, no, it's funny. So a lot of people are like super fans of rock stars or, you know, uh, who knows what. But I'm a fan of race car drivers. I get to they're my heroes, right? They get to do all the fun stuff.
That's
Um,
cool.
it's cool. So with your cars, really our first project together was Randed, and we were working with Nathan on his car. And do you want to tell us a little bit about finding that thing, and then kind of the process of speaking with me about like, okay, we can just get it running. And then I'm like, no, you're the great Randy Pobst here. You want this thing to perform as it can, and maybe even surprise you about how well it can perform. But you want to talk about that?
Well, the car, let me start with the beginning. We're having pizza with the boys after a track day. I think it was all men there actually, but and out in California, outside Sacramento. And I'm with my buddy Nathan Amaral. He's a captain now in the Air Force, and he flies. He flies a
Yep.
C-5 cargo plane, and we have a buddy named Anthony Wong, who is a car salesman, and he's sitting at the table. He goes, "Hey, anybody interested in a 77 Trans Am?" And I'm like, "No, I got too many projects. It's out in California. I don't need any more cars. Is it a stick?" And he goes,
Right.
"Yes." Next thing you know, I own a black 77 Trans Am 4-speed. And I mean, who doesn't like a black 77 Trans Am? And what really did it was I missed my best punchline. I said, "Is it a stick?" "Yes." Nate Dogg, Nathan Amaral, raises his hand. "I'll work on it. You can keep it at my house." Brian,
Right.
you say no to that?
No,
And
absolutely.
the guy we bought it from had owned it for 40 years. It was a year old when he bought it. He was a police officer and somewhere in the Sacramento, Fairfield, Vacaville area of Northern California. And and he was letting it go. And it was solid, almost rust-free Nevada, California car, and kind of needed everything. So you remember right, Brian? It was like, well, we just want to get it running and kind of fix it up, right? And
You called the wrong friend.
dude, there's a YouTube reel. I can't remember the guy's name. Look it up, people. It's called Project Cars Anonymous. Have you ever seen this, Brian?
Yes.
The guy he nails it. He acts like he's a school teacher or whatever, and he says, "Welcome everybody to another meeting of Project Cars Anonymous. Let's start with the Project Cars Anonymous prayer. Car gods, grant me what's the serenity prayer? The serenity.
God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change.
Yeah,
The courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference." Ask me how I know that, by the way. So,
and he said, today, we talked about this a little bit last week, but we're going to move from perception to reality. Perception. Now, Joe, tell us how your project has gone. Perception. He said, well, 3 months, $5,000. Okay, thanks, Joe. And what was the reality? 7 years, $70,000.
right.
We're getting there, Brian, even with all of your help. And the Randit has come so much further than I ever imagined at that dinner and the pizza place about 4 years ago, 3 to 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And it is now an amazing car. And in fact, I'm going to have it at Hyperfest at Virginia International Raceway in May, towards the end of May, like 17th, 18th, around there.
So we talked about maybe doing some engine work on the thing, but it's already got a pretty stout Pontiac in it, like 400 horse or something, right?
It's got a pretty stout Pontiac in it now. At the time, it had the original engine.
Okay.
It was a 400, and it's a 77, so pretty stock. Somewhere in the past, the guy had put a little bit of cam in it, and it had God's own snorkel fiberglassed onto the hood. The previous owner had drag race dreams.
Yeah.
And he also said at one point he'd gotten a heck of a deal on a new rear end. He broke the original rear end in the car that was from some Z28 or something, same generation, 70s, bolted right in there. It was like a 270 gear.
Whoa.
And with a 4-speed, that gives you like 90 miles an hour in first gear. Well, you know it. So the clutch was bad. Well, guess what? With a 270 gear and a 4-speed manual, it's a close ratio manual, and first gear's tall and the clutch was bad. Yeah. So anyway, the engine, though, with tremendous amount of Summit Racing parts, has been fully built by Captain Amaral, and it's making it's almost 400 wheel.
Yeah.
Which from a Pontiac 400 with a set of heads and a sniper on it, a Holly sniper.
Yeah.
That's not bad. And Nathan built the engine.
Right.
In his garage, this kid, he's only 27 or something now.
Right.
And I've known him 5 years. I've watched him come through his Air Force career.
Yeah.
He's done so well, service to the nation. And I respect him so much.
Yep.
And he's having a baby this week.
Oh.
This week. And so he built that engine, ran great. He had to do it again because somebody forgot we were losing oil pressure in the corners. And one of the things we learned about Pontiacs is the heads don't drain back well.
Right.
A lot of guys found that out the hard way when they tried to road race them in the 70s, and almost everybody forgot. So we got a Canton oil pan from Summit.
Okay.
Yeah, we had all that stuff, and we took it to Laguna Seca, and Nate's riding with me because he knows and I know we want to make sure this thing keeps oil pressure in a corner.
Right.
We weren't planning to track the car, but I'm a road racer, and there we were
Yeah.
on the Seika.
Car
And
feels good.
yes, we'd start driving, feels good. We had a whole suspension that we bought at Summit. What did we get? It was like a stage 3. Oh gosh, I can't remember now. We've since upgraded to a full Ride Tech 4-link.
Yeah. Pretty
Project
serious stuff.
project car just keeps.
Right.
Anyway, we went in the corner and the oil pressure went boom, 0 right now. And
Right.
Nate's like, stop it. And
Right.
good. We didn't hurt the engine. Everything was fine, but we knew we couldn't run around the track
No,
anymore.
right.
For
Right.
some reason, even with a really good oil pan, it was starving instantly when you drove it hard, right?
Right.
That's like, yeah, like speed, going into a corner quick, braking hard, turning, getting about a G in the corner, and boom, 0 oil pressure. Well, we knew that. We quit running, engine's fine.
Yeah.
Week later, I'm at Sonoma Raceway. I live in Atlanta. And
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time out west. And I'm at Sonoma Raceway in the Randit. I'm, gosh, what am I doing there? I'm just visiting a friend. There's 4 guys have rented the track. They're doing okay. And I'm saying hi. We're visiting. They let me drive a couple of their super cool track cars.
Yeah.
4 people rented Sonoma. And they, one of their friends was there. He's the drummer from Primus,
Okay.
Herb Alexander.
Okay.
Tim Herb Alexander. If you know Primus, the rock group.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anyway, he's cool. And he's setting up his drums in turn 7. And at Sonoma, they have 2 configurations of the course, and you can drive all the way around this center island in turn 7. And he's going to have race cars driving around him relatively slowly while he's beating on the drums.
Okay.
And they asked if I wanted to be part of it. And I'm like, hell yeah.
Yeah, right.
It's social. So we go out there. There's sports racers. There's a couple BMWs. There's a Lamborghini. It's a wide variety. And the Randit, which is looking good. We had it wrapped exactly like Burt Reynolds' Smokey and the Bandit black and gold Trans Am. No T-tops, which is actually a better long-term plan, to tell the truth.
Absolutely. Those are not going to be troublesome.
Yes. And so we're going around and not that fast. And then I think, brilliant Randy, I'm like, hey, wouldn't it be cool? They got GoPros set up. I should drift by the GoPro, forgetting that we lose oil pressure turning right. So I'm in, I think, first gear. I don't think we had re-geared it yet. Summit. This car is Summit racing end to end now.
Right.
And I'm gassing, I'm sideways. And everything's fine. I drive home. Week later, Nate's got the car at his house. He says, you know, Randy, this thing used to have 30 or 40 pounds at idle oil pressure. Now it has like 5 or 10.
We cut the filter.
It's just turning 700 RPM, you know?
Right.
And no, I had hurt the bearings, and Nate caught it before it got too bad.
Good.
But he had to take it all apart again, and it was totally ADD Randy's fault. And now it has an AccuSump Summit. I mean, I'm proud. Summit's the place to get this stuff. You know, you go on the catalog. It's got a bigger oil cooler. He made drain backs for the head.
Whoa.
I mean, Nathan does not screw around, man.
Yeah.
And but we haven't tested it yet with the AccuSump, but it's going to use it because even with the drain backs, we tested that. It was. We need a longer podcast. There's too many stories. I'm driving this Randit up to Lake Berryessa.
Yeah.
You know the windy road that goes north of Vacaville, Fairfield?
I know some of the roads. I know some of the roads around there, but I don't know that I know that one.
Yeah, sometime Lake Berryessa. The locals know it's a windy road. I'm having a ball, and the oil pan is actually scraping. It's a rough road. The
Yeah.
ramp is low, and it's scraping a little bit, but I'm like, just a little rub. I looked, didn't look like it was hurting. What I was hitting was he was hitting the headers, which,
Okay.
well, that's not good either. But at least it's not the oil pan.
Yeah, it gets a little louder.
Then I hit a big one. I hit a
Okay.
big one. Huge cloud of smoke, and I'm like, oh Lord, I broke something. I shut it off. I pull right over.
Yeah.
Oil pouring out. It's all over the road. I'm like, somebody's going to lose it and hit me.
Right.
Anyway, what I'd done is I didn't break the oil pan, but I hit it just right so it unscrewed the
Oh.
drain cap. It had a slide cap,
Yeah.
and it unscrewed it and just and
Oh my God.
I called Nate. I'm like, Nate, I bottomed out and we lost all the oil.
I've got good news. I've got good news. The bearings are alive.
This is after he fixed it.
Yes.
He'd already done this twice. And he's like, he's a good man. But I
Yeah.
could tell he's like, Randy, if you hurt that engine again, I'm going to kill you.
Right.
And I'm in the Air Force. We have ways.
That's
Well,
awesome.
we got away with
Oh
it.
man.
And,
Well,
and
this is really what I hoped for is, so Summit for really over 20 years. We've been pushing, track days and autocross. Traditionally the company really kind of started off with drag racing, but everybody of every stripe of every enthusiast works here at Summit. And, we've done a little bit of everything, but Al Noe is our chief marketing officer, and he does track days all the time in a 67, in a C8. And, he's really kind of helped us go push into some of those different areas, not just with the cars, suspension. I mean, really kind of starting off with the engine, right? But then getting into the suspension and the different factories that make great stuff, for suspension, but then the safety gear as well. So my son and I, he's got a 944 Facebook Marketplace 944, picked it up for $2,500. Found a Facebook Marketplace L33
Nice.
aluminum block 5.3, threw a cam in it, and doing all that. And then he's like, okay, what's next? Safety. So we talked to Mark McMahon, the local roll cage
back
guy.
up.
Yeah.
Did you say LS swap?
Yeah.
Oh, right. Great.
Oh yeah.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
Go
So
ahead.
he decided,
I almost
he
missed that.
decided he was going to be a Porsche guy, but he wasn't married to the four-cylinder, all 145 horsepower of its glory, right? So the all aluminum
Crazy.
LS353 weighs the same. Essentially, it's within 40 pounds. Just move the battery to the back, and it equals out the weight distribution again. But we just picked up a couple Sparco seats for it, couple RGS harnesses, all the cool stuff, for the safety, because we're going to end up. This is a little out there, but we're going to try to get this thing out to Bonneville to run the ECTA standing mile in July. It's their first Bonneville mile where people like you and I can take our street cars and go do Bonneville for 1.5 miles down the Salt. So
Wow.
a plug for those guys, but then we want to drive it back and try to do Autocross Week, which is essentially the next few days right after that. So 1,855 miles out.
What month?
July.
Autocross Week. July.
So Autocross Week is like 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. It's like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday of that. And it's a cool deal. In the same way that Drag Week is for drag racers, Summit Autocross Week is a way of, getting folks at autocross to different tracks. And at the same time, it's like, these aren't trailer cars. They have to run one set of tires. They have to drive back, in this case, between pit race. We're going to Mid-Ohio. We're going to the Cleveland IX Center. Last year, we were over at the UMI Field of Dreams. But it's essentially 3 days of driving the car back and forth, to these events. And Eric Heller and Co. Yeah, it's a great organization, that runs this thing. So it's just run after run after run, super well organized. So Van and I did that last year in my street car, and he got used to like going between rounds and setting tire pressures and all that and feeling the competition. shutting off all the nannies like we have to do in the modern cars. That's the tough part about your job. How do you remember where all the nannies are in these modern cars you got to drive?
I rely on my coworkers.
Okay.
At Motor Trend, it was always Johnny Lieberman, Jason Camisa, Scott Evans. Yeah. And they would give me a recommendation because they had more time with it. Whereas
Yeah.
I just showed up at the track, but you're right. And typically I would turn it off, completely off, because then you find out how the car really handles.
Right.
On the other hand, it's gotten so good, you can actually use those nannies. I just did a track day yesterday at Virginia, VIR,
Yeah.
and I left it on in a newer Porsche Turbo GT3.
Yeah.
What else was I in? Mustang Mach 1. And even with it on, it doesn't piss me off. Right? In the old days, it would piss me off. You know the feeling.
Yeah. Your foot to the floor and you're like, drive, right? That's
Yeah,
awesome.
it's just not anymore. They're really good. So it's
Right.
like, hey, you know what? It's not slowing me down. I got a little safety net. If anything goes wrong, we're good.
Okay. Well, Jason really impresses me. I was listening to a podcast and he wasn't zoning out. I'm trying to describe how he does it, but his vocabulary is insane.
Yes.
And how he can, as a writer, essentially at heart, how he's able to describe what these cars are doing.
Yes.
And, you know, and he also understands the physics of it. Not a lot of people understand the physics of cars. So one of the things that you've done with us here at Summit Racing is you've written some tech articles on driving, because a lot of our cars, might have pretty terrible weight distribution to begin with, and we have all these band-aids to try to fix that. But do you want to talk about that's your job as a race car driver, is to make any car go fast. And there are things that you recognize in a car when you step into it, how it's going to be, and ways to mitigate its bad behavior. But do you want to talk about driving a bit?
Your primary job as a driver is weight management. Thank you, my old friend Terry Earwood. And you use that, you move the weight in the car depending on how it handles. Okay. So let's look at understeer and oversteer. Those are two basic things that a car can do wrong. Where when a car is right, it's beautifully balanced, right? If the car understeers, it doesn't want to turn enough. Well, the way to get the car to turn better is to leave the weight up on the front longer, which means in other terms is to slow down longer going into a corner. Cars turn better when they're slowing down because the weight transfers forward and that load is on the front wheels and they actually turn better.
Mm-hmm.
So if your car's understeering, it's pushing, it's trying to hit the wall with the front, then you can
Trail
go in
braking.
faster. That's the good side of understeer. You can go in faster, but keep slowing down because the car turns better when you're slowing down. So say you got an old Fox body or any pony car, they tend to be heavy in the front. Slow down a long time going in the corner. Because when you get on the power, the weight transfers back and now the front's light and it doesn't steer as well.
Right.
Opposite, oversteer is if the car is twitchy, tail happy. 911s, old 911s are famous for that. Mid-engine cars can be twitchy. Or if your car is twitchy, and it's kind of scary when you turn for the corner, slow down before the corner, get back on the power a little early. It only takes a little bit. When you're in a corner, small changes make a big difference. So you go a little bit of power early, which transfers weight back, makes the back of the car stick better. You're actually balancing your car's weight, and that will make the car more stable all the way through the corner. You use your weight management. Back,
That's
if
awesome.
you need more grip in the back by getting on a little power. Forward, if you need to turn better by being off the power and maybe even on a very light brake. We call it a trail brake.
Yes.
On braking, you want to get in hard and come out real slow while you're seeing if the car will get turned the way you want it.
Right. So we make a lot of horsepower at Summit Racing. but I'm also a big fan of brakes because it's the one thing that, I mean, yeah, there's some costs and consumables and stuff, but as much horsepower as it takes to accelerate the car, it takes to decelerate the car. And you can do that lap after lap after lap and take and shed tons of speed and time by learning to do that. But if you're like me, you got all these amazing brakes, but then you're afraid to go deep, deep, deep before you have to take a turn. So what would your advice be to a driver that is on the brakes, but then you're off the brakes because you braked way too early? Like, what are some of the pointers that you give people that drive like that?
Okay, if we're talking about the track, at a track, you always want to have reference points, and you'll see them in a lot of brake zones. There'll be sometimes there's numbers 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, or just look for a crack in the pavement, anything that won't move, a paint mark, a skid mark. These can be references. Know where you're hitting the brake and hit the brake early at first. You can
Okay.
tell by looking. Like you just know from your driving experience, if I brake now, we're going to be fine. Everything's good. If you know it was at that black skid mark on the right, you go a little bit past that and see how it feels. And then you go a little bit past that. And so you sneak up on it in
Right.
small bites, a little bit at a time. And you also, on a track, you want to brake hard. When you're going straight and you're coming up on a slow corner, you want to brake hard. Use the brakes and get comfortable with that as long as there's not somebody right on your tail. On the street, brakes are they're safe. On the racetrack, they're fast because the better you brake, the longer you can go fast. So late braking is a great way to improve your lap times. But it's on the street, it's safer. The great thing about the track is you get used to that braking capability.
Right.
You know what it feels like. And you know what? You should go to a back empty parking lot sometime and practice a couple times stopping as fast as you can.
Right.
Just so you know what it feels like, what your grip level is, what your anti-lock brakes may feel like if you have it, or if you don't have it and you're 67 Chevelle, you find out what's this car going to do before it's an emergency on the highway.
Right.
Especially on
Motorcycles too.
Sorry?
Yeah, motorcycles too. A lot of people get into accidents on motorcycles because they've never really put the bike into full on panic stop mode on the street when they can practice and know what the bike's going to do. So you're
Yeah,
getting into the car.
let's not panic stop. So guess what? If
Yes.
you practice a little bit, you're less likely to panic. You're going to have a little
Right.
feel for that. You start out easy. On a motorcycle, you use more front than you do rear. And the harder you brake, the more of the front you use than the rear.
Yeah. So do you ride a motorcycle? I mean, I don't know that I've seen you ride.
You know what, Brian? I love cars. I've been a car guy and raced cars my whole life. But deep down inside, I'm a bike guy.
What?
I have 15 of them. I have one in my living room and I have one downstairs in the gym room. Yeah,
Okay,
I love motorcycles. But I never had that screw loose that made me want to race a motorcycle.
Right.
When I was 14 years old, I looked at that motorcycle. I'm like, if I race that, I'm going to hurt my body
Right.
a lot. So I've always raced cars, but I love bikes. And it's good to practice stopping, especially on a motorcycle. You ever heard the term in motorcycles? Well, I was coming up on that corner and that guy pulled out in front of me and I had to lay it down.
Yes. Right.
Typically, I love you out there, my friends, motorcycle riders that laid it down, but it's probably because you didn't really know how to stop a bike. You locked the back tire, it got sideways and crashed.
Yeah, it's not like he jumped off of it and like surfboarded the thing to a stop with sparks flying. That's probably not exactly how that went.
Practice stopping a little bit at a time.
All right.
So that you don't lay it down.
So
same with cars.
Okay. So motorcycles, one little bit longer. So are you a vintage motorcycle guy, or do you have different eras of bikes? And I can't imagine they're all exactly sport bikes either. They might be cafe racers or something, right?
Oh, you nailed it, Brian. My favorite genre is a cafe racer.
Okay.
I have several of them. Cafe racer in my world is usually a Japanese or British motorcycle from
Yeah.
the 70s. And
Norton.
I have three or four of that kind of style. And
Yeah.
my favorite is called a Honda CBX, which
Yeah.
is a six-cylinder. The engine is wider than the
Headline
bike is.
six. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's done up as a cafe racer, so it looks kind of like a racing motorcycle, but it's really a street bike.
Right.
And it has a six-cylinder that sounds so glorious.
Yeah.
It's just the sound. But my daily rider, not that I ride that much. Actually, most of my bikes have cobwebs. I hate to admit that, but is a BMW R1200 GS,
Okay.
which is that's the adventure motorcycle
Yes.
category. It's kind of like an SUV motorcycle. It'll
I've
do
seen
a
him.
little bit of like a dirt road.
Yeah.
It is no dirt bike, but like an SUV is really, it's not a Jeep, but it'll do a dirt road. But I like the way it handles because I
Okay.
don't want to go fast. I've never been really a horsepower guy until I got my Trans Am.
Right.
I like corners. And I remember now I got a UMI suspension from Summit.
Right. They
And
do awesome work over there, by the way. Those
beautiful.
guys
Yeah.
know how to make these cars work.
The
So
shocks are built by my buddies at Bilstein to
yeah.
UMI specs. And well, they're partners. And yeah, it was fabulous from
No.
the moment we put it on there.
All right. So we've talked about all your bikes, and I asked some of my friends to kind of chime in with like, questions that I should ask you, because not a lot of people have really ever had the chance, to really just have one-on-one with you. And it's a really amazing opportunity. I'm very, very thankful for it. And we have all the people over here in the comments making posts, and we're going to go through those in a bit. By the way, folks, if you have any questions, feel free to go ahead and comment. Now is your moment, to try to cover some of those. And if we don't do it right now, we'll try to go through the comments afterwards. But we have people from all over the world that tune into these live streams. So it's a great way for, racers to commune with Randy and for Randy to hang out with racers and answer questions. So getting back to that other one about favorite bikes and bike styles, you've driven everything out there on the road, but there's probably a few machines that have been put in museums that may never run again. Do you have any dreams of like race cars that you'd like to get a chance to run sometimes with?
Race cars.
Yes. We'll start with race cars,
Absolutely.
then we're going to go to,
Let,
then we'll go to street cars.
let's go full dream weaving, okay?
All right.
In the 30s, in the 1930s, the Germans made some fabulous Grand Prix racing cars. It was Formula
Yeah.
One, but they didn't call it that yet. And Audi made
W124s
sorry?
W124 or something, Auto Union or what?
Yes, Auto Union. They made a mid-engined. This is in the 30s, a mid-engine V16 Grand Prix car. I would so love to drive that car. That's number one. I'd like to drive from the 90s, the McLaren F1. They called it an F1, but it was a supercar for the street in those days.
Right.
And then they raced them. I would love to drive one of those center seat, normally aspirated BMW V12. And I see the videos, street car or the race car version. I'd love to drive those. I would like to drive a Formula One car.
Okay.
Any year, but especially like the newer ones. I'm intimidated because I saw a steering wheel recently. Have you seen a Formula One steering wheel?
Do you mean the keyboard?
The keyboard. There are 20 dials and knobs.
Right.
No, I know I couldn't do that. When I drive, I like to focus, and I have a very narrow bandwidth.
Okay.
If I had to turn all those knobs, forget about it.
I think you're selling yourself a little short. I think you'd find yourself in something for 10 minutes and pretty rapidly get in the hang of anything. All right. So we've talked about cool cars that you want to race. can you talk about some of the examples of street or race cars that you were handed that you're like, never again, this was the worst pile of junk to drive? What was your scariest one?
Oh boy. Okay. Now this is not a race car, but I'm going to pick on a car. C7 Corvette Z06.
Okay.
Dicey. Woo. And I've driven cars that people set up, and
Mhm.
they went to Summit and they got a suspension upgrade for it. But in the race mode, a C7 Z06 is a tricky car to drive. They don't put power down very well. What's interesting is the C7 was really good on the way in. Brakes are great, turns in, comes into a corner really fast. C7 Corvette. This is in the 2000 teens, right?
Yeah, yeah.
When did that come out? Like 2012 or 11 to
Little later,
18?
it's like 13, 14, 15, right around
Yeah,
in
in
there.
there. It's really good on the way in, but when you go to the power, if you have your nannies turned off, and one of our commenters mentioned that on the ZR1 version, when you go to the power, they don't put power down well, especially on the initial. And
Right.
pow, it'll snap oversteer. Speaking of that, another one I like to pick on, the Viper. I got into a
Yeah.
Twitter with Ralph Gilles at SRT years ago because I said the Viper scared me. And he's like, nicely, Ralph is my hero and a gentleman. But he's like, kind of said, you're not a man if you can't drive a Viper.
Right, right.
Because I
The
said it
earlier
scared
ones
me
were really sketchy, and
earlier. Brilliant. Every single one of them.
even up to the
And
last.
I'll finish my story.
Okay.
So I'm saying, look, I'm sorry, Ralph. Bad handling cars scare me. I doubled
Nice.
down. Guess what? A few months later, SRT hired me to help set up the cars. I didn't do much. They had already done all the hard work. But
Okay.
I feel like me and Motor Trend helped motivate them. They made a TA version that
Yeah.
was improved. We set the
Yep.
lap record in Laguna. Then they made the very last one. This is so American. The very last Viper, the ACRX, is a great handling car. And it handles so well. And it has a set of Bilsteins adjustable. Put it on the
Yeah.
factory settings. But I'm driving it with one hand. I'm looking at the camera. I'm going, look, Ma, one hand.
Right.
You don't do that in any other Viper. If you drive a Viper, they're fun, but they require you to be the best driver you can be. They're
Right.
powerful, they're twitchy, they're all over the place until the last one. And then they canceled it. But it had a hell of a run since 1990.
Yeah. It's interesting because when it comes to magazine writers, if there's one thing that irks me a little bit, and I may have had a couple Corvettes, still have one, but it's like, okay, you talk about something that's a pleasure to drive, and then something that's brutally fast happens to be 5 seconds a lap faster than this thing that's a pleasure to drive. And you kind of talk trash about that one and you just speak wonderfully about this one, but it's like, okay, if you were to like slow down in the fast one, it too would drive like a dream, right? And that's one thing that they never quite talk about is track times and the fact that you can lay off that pedal just a little bit. But I don't know. It's just one of these things. I wish there were more back-to-back track times. I know that the magazines can't quite do that as much as they used to. Looking at you, Ferrari. The other thing I want to say is, you guys started showing up at VIR, and so what's the other one? Was it Sebring that you guys do a lot of testing at?
Car and Driver uses
Yes.
VIR, but
Yep.
they use the Grand Course, which is
Yes.
like every turn they have. It's not the standard full race course.
Okay.
I believe that Car and Driver does that on purpose because they don't want their lap times to be compared to normal people.
Right.
It's a way of keeping it in-house, right?
Right.
Now,
Right.
I work for Motor Trend, and we always did Laguna Seca,
Yes.
WebTech Raceway Laguna Seca, and I'm really proud of what the magazine accomplished in those days. We don't do it anymore. It ended about in COVID. COVID brought it to an end, but it was kind of coming to an end because Discovery Channel had bought the magazine and
Okay.
kind of turning it into a TV channel. And now it's been sold again to Hearst Publishing. It'll be real interesting to see what direction Motor Trend goes now. But our car tests were real. Those lap times were real. We always had fresh tires, always me driving.
Yep.
And most of the time, I beat the factory test drivers. I'm really proud of that. And you mentioned it earlier, and I appreciate that, Brian. And I didn't crash them. 3 laps. 3 laps, Brian. That's all I got. But I'm proud of that. And they were real. They meant
Right.
it meant something. The car and driver, they tend to take the fastest lap, no matter who drove it or when or in what condition the car or the track was. So they have really good reporting and really good reports, but the times vary a little bit. Although they're getting better at it every year.
Right.
My best buddy over there is Carlos Lago. He's terrific, good driver, smart guy, and he does a great job too.
No doubt. Yeah, he's pretty amazing. I watch his stuff. I don't listen to a lot of podcasts, but he's one of them that I enjoy listening to those guys when they talk cars because they get it. You know, they think like I do, or you know, they ponder the same things that I do. So that's really awesome. So the other thing that did just happen is you started off with Randit, which wasn't so much of a race car, and then you and a friend of ours found a race car that was in need of a little bit of resurrection. You want to talk about that one?
I have a friend in North Carolina, a woman, Ann, and I'm just going to say Ann, and Ann's husband passed away. Ann's husband was he was a hoarder. They had 110 cars on their property when he died. And a lot of them were nice cars. Well, Ann's ex-husband had a tendency to race a car till it broke, park it, and go buy another one.
Okay.
And that's where I discovered this C3 Corvette.
Okay.
Ann's husband raced it at Road America in 1986. The engine blew. There it is. Beautiful. And the engine blew. And I thought that might be Road America. That's not. That looks more like Miami down south. So he raced it, but at Road America, blew the engine. He brought it home, parked it in their sizable garage, and there it sat for 38 years until last summer when Ann sold it to me. And I dragged it out of there. There it is. That's where it's
wow.
It's got the dust on it. Those are the wheels for it back there. That engine is one of the other ones that they had. This is where it is now. That's Corey Newland's garage. Yes. Corey is my buddy out in Turlock, California, and he is getting that car going again. He's already got a new engine in it. And guess what? We're going to kind of run it as is. Even the same brake calipers, although he's rebuilt them.
All
Corey,
right.
I love you. Thanks for all your help, my brother. And we're so excited about this C3 Corvette because this is a total time capsule, Brian.
Right.
Straight off the track from 1986. And it's a 70s car. Look at that jacket. Nice, huh?
I love that jacket. We got Katie back here behind the controls going through. Wow, look at that picture, man.
See, the wheels are a little silly. I had to go through the wheels. If you look at their property, this is where the 100 cars were.
Okay.
And Ann said, it had the same tires on it. It had from 1986.
Right.
That's 40 years ago. And I'm trying to get it on the trailer. And so she let me go through the garage and find like any wheel that would fit and roll.
Wow.
So the front wheel looks really small. It is. It's like a drag race wheel. You run the little bitty ones. But I could get it on the car. It didn't rub. And it was a combination of like 4 different wheels to get the car out of there that day. It's so much fun. And look at that car. It's so real. I love a stock body with big flares.
Right.
That's always been a favorite of mine, right?
Huge fan of the Trans Am era here. SVRA racing. Love that stuff. Watching those machines go.
They're like muscles. They bulge. And this is the it's the later body style.
Mhm.
We're not even sure what year the car was, but you know the chassis were the same from 63 to
Right,
81.
right.
And it probably is a late 70s car, and it has the early 80s body with the fastback. No
Got it.
wing, just a spoiler.
Right.
I'm excited. That car is going to be a beast
Katie, do
because
we have any other photos of that one? See what other photos she might have.
that's the
Ah,
interior. This
look at
car
that.
is straight off the racetrack from
Uh,
1986.
he just pulled it in and parked it.
It's got a four-speed, I think it's a synchro tranny. I'm not sure what it is, maybe a Muncie. Not
Okay.
real
Hey,
sure yet.
Corey joined us. He said it's a 1976 chassis and C3 fiberglass two-piece body. Oh, that's another thing I saw about that body is the entire back and the roof lifted off the back in the pits. That's so cool.
That's great because you can work on it. And
Awesome.
Corey is like my Captain Nate Amaral #2.
That's
Corey
awesome.
is the same way. He's like, hey man, if you buy that car, I'll work on it.
That's
So
awesome. Super T10. Ooh,
yeah,
gosh.
I dragged it
So,
out on my open trailer and I took it straight to a guy with a semi, rolled it in the trailer, and it went to
yep.
Corey's house. These
Ah,
are
wow.
garage projects.
Right. Hey, Katie, do you want to run through the rest of those photos? It's like memory lane here with this thing.
Oh, it's incredible. I'm so excited. We're going to use as much of the original
So,
car as we
so
safely
what
can.
is this thing going to be like when you take it out? I mean, what are you going to be on the track with when you? Oh, there's Corey, right?
Yep, that's Corey. That's in his garage in Turlock.
Cool, dude.
And next to it is one of his other cars. Corey's got a little bit of a hoarder gene himself.
Right.
That's about a 1970 Camaro that he
Okay.
found that was a dominant autocross champion in I believe the 80s with a
Okay.
guy named Bill Foster. And now
Okay.
he's got it running and I've actually driven it on track.
Wow. That's cool. All right. Well, it sounds like you got a game plan. So what do you got planned for the rest of this year?
Guess what? I'm going to Goodwood.
What?
Yeah, the Goodwood Festival of Speed. You've probably seen the reels
I,
on Instagram and YouTube.
yeah.
Last year I got a last minute ride at the Pikes Peak International Hill Climb.
Yeah.
You know, I've done that Pikes Peak 8 times.
Right.
Had 2 huge crashes there, and Hyundai invited me anyway. And I drove an electric Hyundai Ioniq 5N TA
Yeah.
spec. That means it
Yeah.
has giant wing and split. And they're going to let me drive that car at Goodwood. So that's
Okay.
coming. I'm going to be doing the one lap of America, which is very much like your Summit Autocross week, except we
Wow.
go to racetracks.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do that with my buddy Jason Stormowski from Milwaukee. We've done it the last 4 years, I think. Won our
Okay.
class every time. Whoops. Proud of that. And last year we borrowed a car. Last 2 years from a place called Throttle Stop in Elkhart Lake, Road America.
Okay. Yeah.
And this year we're sniffing around. Anybody got a car? Anybody got a
Right.
car?
Right.
And we've got 3 possibilities. We don't even know what we're running yet. It's in early May, which is 2.5 weeks away, right? So we're going to do the one lap of America, me and Jason.
Okay.
I love that
Yep.
event. Basically, you hot lap a racetrack, drive 300 miles, hot lap a racetrack. That's just like Autocross Week, Summit Autocross Week, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You want to do
It's
that.
totally a bucket list thing. You know, I'll know he wants to do it. I want to do it at some point. So yeah, it can be brutal too. I mean, you're putting some miles on in cars that are can be pretty uncomfortable too.
Allowed one set of tires on one lap of America. Is that Autocross Week like that too?
Same deal. Like
Yeah,
if you blow one or you hit, puncture one somehow, you're allowed a spare of the exact same make and model, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, you're running one set of tires, you're running one alignment, or you have to go out there and kill yourself changing alignment settings at the track and changing them back. Most of us are just setting the thing up and coming back on cords by the time we're done.
Yeah, I love it. I'm going to do that if I can. I was
You're
looking at my
invited.
schedule. It's right after Goodwood, and then guess what? In I think it's in August. I'm going to do Monterey Car Week, the Monterey
Okay.
Motorsports reunion. I'm driving an Audi S4 that I raced for Champion Racing in 2004. Same car,
Wow. Okay.
and Brandon has Audi Parts Unlimited, and he owns the car. He's a young man. He can't be 35. He might be 25. He's young.
Okay.
And I don't know if we're going to get the Corvette there. I think it's too late at this point, but maybe next year. But what I wonder is at Monterey, the cars are beautiful. They're perfect. They're totally restored. They
Right.
don't have one single piece on them from 1967.
Right.
This Firebird, I mean, this Corvette, excuse
The
me,
C3, it's a time capsule. I saw
it's
the
it's
MSD7AL in the thing. He was digging up parts for this thing. I think it had a Mallory Unilite or something. And I'm like, oh, I've
yes,
been on the side of the road with one of those before too. So, he's digging up parts for this thing, and it's just awesome.
it's awesome. And what I'm curious is if we want to take it to Monterey and run it with the Corvettes to see if they will let it run in its as found condition. I mean, we'll
Okay.
clean it. It actually looks pretty good. The numbers are kind of homemade, but that's part of the beauty. I mean, this is the real deal vintage car. And I will definitely run it at vintage events,
Uh,
maybe
I
SVRA, HSR, the vintage racing organizations,
Yeah.
RMPR in the Rocky Mountains, maybe.
Okay.
And I can't wait.
So
Big front engine V8.
yeah. So when you do this stuff, I mean, yes, we enjoy the car, yes, we enjoy the speed, but your driving impressions are awesome.
Okay.
And for every one of us that lives vicariously through you, be sure to get those little tiny, impressions of it, because it's one of our favorite parts about watching you race. Um,
Thank you.
we need to do this again soon. Let's get this summer under our belt. I mean, we've run a little bit long, but I do want to say thank you for all the people that joined us today. This thing's going to be out on YouTube if you want to share it, and Facebook. And mostly to our team here for helping us put it together. Nate, Corey, for you guys helping get Randy, helping him get this thing, these cars running. I love this stuff. So with that, Randy, thank you for joining us today.
Brian, it's a pleasure. And go to Summit Racing for all your parts. Yeah, I mean, both my cars are just loaded with that end to end.
Thanks, Randy. All right. So with that, we'll leave us for today, and you'll definitely see more of this and great content. Be sure to like, subscribe, ring the bell, all that fun stuff, and we'll see you later.